Hello again. We've all heard of the emu war, big birds down under, attacking farmers' crops, and face the might of the three-man Australian army, only to be humiliated by these flightless birds. But don't worry, for one, I'm not making a video on the emus, because there is plenty more out there with better quality than what I can produce. And two, Aussies don't have to be humiliated by this severe loss anymore, as a similar scenario happened 25-something years later, in China. Okay, so let's set the stage. It's currently 1958, Chairman Mao Zedong has begun mass production of steel among the nation. Farmers are taken away from the rice fields to work on making steel with their backyard furnaces. Only problem is, the so-called steel that is produced is complete S. And Mao doesn't want to take advice on how to create high-quality steel that he so dearly wants. Now, the problem here is already obvious. Why is he taking farmers away from their profession into a completely new field of labor? In this time of China too, the food production is already being slowed down thanks to the people communes, which are basically one big patch of land that is worked on by up to 400 families at once, supposedly to help increase food production. But it doesn't really. I'm no farmer expert by any means, but I think these 400 families or so can have more land if they were not forced to work together, making food output working much more efficiently. So two problems are already showing their heads: collectivist lands and a lack of farmers, making food output even slower. We can see the oh shit meter is beginning to reach the red zone. Now for the kicker, a lack of these agricultural policies begin to make it harder for these farmers and their joint-owned lands to develop and make more food. Sprinkle in some high costs of food, a dash of locust swarms on rotting crops, and a pinch of bad weather conditions, which can result in a severe case of famine. Kicking it into four-wheel drive. Famine is struck across China but affected the rural areas much worse, millions going hungry, thanks to this production drop. People begin to point fingers at what could be causing this, but not at the right places, or people. And instead are given into following a campaign from the government, called the For Pests campaign. It was an attempt to kill off and eradicate pests which were held responsible for the spread of disease and pestilence. One of which was the Eurasian tree sparrow. A very small and precious bird. But the Chinese people did not see it that way. They were called to take action against these birds for eating the grain seeds and fruit grown in the rural countryside. Attempts to kill the birds varied from destroying sparrow nests and eggs, killing the chicks, and using pots and pans to kill them by exhaustion, to straight up shooting the sparrows out of the fucking sky like it was target practice. I guess the people had a short-term victory, because in the end there wasn't enough sparrows going around to eat the grain seeds. Instead their prey, the locusts, was busy doing the job for them. Not only did the sparrows eat the seeds, but also the insects that fed on these seeds as well. So this short-term victory escalated dramatically into a long-term shitstorm for everyone involved. There was also attempts for the sparrows to take refuge in the embassies of other nations in Beijing, one of which was the Polish embassy, which rightfully refused the request for the Chinese to enter the embassy to scare of or kill the sparrows inside. But instead they just circled the entire embassy, and started banging their pots and pans. After 2 days the Polish officials at the embassy took their shovels, and begun to clear the embassy of dead sparrows. You can safely say that until anything was said or done to stop the killing of the sparrows, that the Chinese peasants would not stop until they were driven to extinction. But thankfully, Mao had changed the policy of the campaign, after finding out that the sparrows were actually helping the production and size of rice yields. He removed the sparrow as the primary target, and changed it to divert attention to the bed bugs. But since the sparrow population was so tiny now, and with lots of trees cut down and poisons and pesticides just flowing through the rivers of the countryside, the government had to import some 250,000 sparrows from the Soviet Union, just to increase the population to the point where it could have a chance at decreasing the number of locusts and slowly begin to let crops have a chance at being harvested. Now that I think about it, the emu war and campaign against sparrows really share a lot in common. only instead one of them caused a chunk of the population to die as a result of careless actions. I believe the phrase, history does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes fits well in this situation. I also think the story has a moral, to not begin hunting the birds during a national struggle, otherwise the birds will bite back from beyond the grave in more ways than you could imagine. So that's gonna be a wrap for this video, hope you enjoyed this one. And as always, thank you for watching.